then what do you think the first question out of your mouth is? Who caused
it?
No, who caused God, right? Because if I'm making the argument that God caused the universe, then if we're going to use the law of causality, we have to apply it to God, right? Then who caused God? Right? Now you've got an infinite regress. There's a problem. But the problem with the argument that God had some kind of creator is that they don't understand and they don't know how to define who God is.
Scientology.
You see, God is eternal. He's spirit. He's outside of time, space, and matter. He's outside of nothing. He's in a totally different realm of existence. And because he's in a different realm of existence, okay, he can cause things and be the first cause. We call it the first cause uncaused. In other words, God caused the universe to happen, but he is not caused, therefore he is the first cause uncaused. He cannot be caused. He is eternal. Does that make sense?
Try to make sense of it. So what you're saying basically is God does not live in the same reality that we do.
That's right. Good job, Felix. That's exactly right. God does not live in the same reality we do. So can God be caused?
Can God be caused, he's asking.
Could he be caused? Can he be created? Can God be created if he's the first cause uncaused?
Why not?
Okay, then what created God?
I mean, one of the first things that, when we teach mythology in school, we teach...
Okay.
Excuse me?
No, I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Oh, Greek and Roman mythology, it's their answer to why certain things happen. When they can't come up with another explanation, they turn to one of their many gods and say, well, it's the gods who have done this. I guess as much as there's a strong part of me that believes in the Big Bang, okay, and how old the Earth is, 4.3 billion years old. There's also a part of me that goes back to my early Hebrew school teaching, that says that there has to be, like you said before, a prime mover. There has to be somebody who has set all of this in motion.
Of course.
Now,
but isn't that consistent, though, Mark?
Excuse me?
Isn't that consistent? I'm sorry to interrupt you there again. We're on a delay. So when I think that you're finished speaking, I go ahead and speak, and then we talk over each other. I think that's the way it's working. No, go ahead and finish your thought, and then I have a thought, okay?
No, I was going to say that. All right, these are my senior moments when I get distracted, and it's not your fault. No, it does truly happen. Especially, you may have heard me talk about 12 years ago. I had some meniscus surgery on my left knee, and it left me without oxygen for 6 minutes. Okay. And I had temporal and frontal lobe damage. This is documented. Okay. So I tend to lose my train of thought, and there are many times when I'm speaking, or somebody's speaking, and I have an idea, and it's almost like I'm a little kid, and I have to get my thought out, because if I wait for them to finish explaining what they're explaining, I'm going to forget what I wanted to say.
Sure.
Okay, so for that I do apologize. I mean, it is...
that's fine.
Hey, when I stopped, it's amazing because how many medical people turn to religion. My neurologist said to me, he said, you truly are a miracle. He said, because at the same time that this happened, there was some. You might have remember the fireman in Buffalo who was in a coma for 10 years. He was deprived of oxygen for 6 minutes. Okay.
Yeah,
and
caused damage.
He came out of his coma thinking it was only a few days later. Okay, and the whole thing had to be explained to him that 10 years had gone by.
Oh, wow.
10 years of his life. Okay, unfortunately, things happened after that. He eventually died of pneumonia, I believe. Not too long after that. But, my doctor would tell me, you're lucky that your wife isn't visiting you in some nursing home and you're being spoon-fed, okay, and that you have to relearn the alphabet and how to talk and how to take care of yourself all over again. Mm-hmm. So, as much as I feel I was robbed of certain things, I mean, I had to stop working. I do have a short temper. I suffer from insomnia to a certain extent. But these all become minor things when you think about that fireman who lost 10 years of his life. What could have happened. And that's why I say this is a miracle. And when you talk miracles, you talk God and you talk religion.
Mm-hmm, sure.
No matter how you want to look at it, science doesn't always have the answers to everything.
I agree.
And even doctors will tell people who have, when they have exhausted everything they possibly can on a patient, they'll say, well, there's always prayer. That's all we have. Again, you and I were discussing this afternoon, faith. Okay.
Yes.
There's always, you could always turn to faith, when it comes to something like that, because I think mankind needs a superior being. Mankind needs to know that he is answerable to someone for things that happen. So while part of me, like I said, wants to believe in the Big Bang Theory and this spark from nothing that created, the universe and the Earth and the planets and the stars, I also have this struggle within me, about God, because I consider myself a believer in religion, and I consider myself a believer in the fact that there is a supreme being,
That something's missing. Mm-hmm.
And I when my time comes, okay, and again they said, well, how did you know that it wasn't your time then? I said, well, at that particular, other than grandparents, my mother had passed away already. My mother was already gone, okay? When I was unconscious, when I was in a coma for a day and a half or a day, whatever it was, I didn't see anybody, okay? I didn't float above my body, okay? None of that stuff, which simply told me that I just wasn't ready, okay? That eventually I would have, and I did come back, okay? I mean, my mother wasn't there welcoming me, okay? Am I making any sense? I guess that's the next question.
It does. It goes back though to a question, that me and you were talking about earlier, Mark, which was, you see, the reason I like talking to you guys a lot is because I can tell that you're somewhat truth seekers. And I say somewhat lightly because I don't know your heart completely, only God does. But I can tell that you're willing to hear another view that is not your own, but you're still holding on to your view. What my hope is, and what my prayer is that God would open up your eyes, that you would be saved. Now, that begs the question, doesn't it? What does it mean to be saved, and how do you know, Chad, that I'm not saved? Well, look, before we get into the gospel, there's still some barriers in both your lives that you really need to come to terms with. And one of those things, and as we're talking about evolution and creation, there's another aspect of this that I think is important, Mark, and I think this is kind of deep, but I'm going to bring up what we brought up earlier on the phone when we talked, which was this. How do I know that the God that I am preaching about today is the God you need to believe in? And how do I know the God that I am preaching about today that you need to believe in order to be saved is consistent with reality? And here's one last question. How do I know that the God I'm preaching about today interferes with other religions? See, that is the crux of this whole thing. This is what is creating the argument in at least our discussion between us three. We are trying to answer the ontological question, who are we, who is God, how did he create, and what is my involvement? And what is his involvement? Those are the ontological questions that need to be answered. Then we can clearly see what the Bible says. Now, my argument is this. I don't know what your argument is, but here's my argument. My argument is the God from the Bible, both in the Old and the New Testament, is not only consistent with reality, but he is the only answer to life and death. He is the only one who has explanatory power and scope to be able to explain all of life. Not Buddha, not Allah, not Muhammad, not Baha'i, not Hindu. None of those guys can do what the God from the Bible has done. And by the way, none of those guys have ever claimed to die for your sins. They are impersonable gods that are false. So if you believe in a religion outside of the Bible, you are damned forever, and it doesn't matter how good of a person you think that you are, you will be damned forever. Now, obviously, if I'm going to claim something like that, I think we ought to find you, right? And for your sake, too, not just for my sake. If what I'm claiming is true, you guys, that the God from the Bible is the way, the truth, and the life, then you need to know that. Are you guys following me?
So far.
I am, yeah.
Okay. Now let's make that case, and I'm going to ask you a simple question. What makes sense? Well, tell me if this makes sense to you. Something caused God, or God existed always?
God existed always.
Now, is that consistent with the reality in which we live?
No.
You don't think that's consistent? I mean, who created the universe?
Yeah, that's consistent, because if you go along with what we discussed earlier, then it follows the path. God created.
What path? What do you mean? Who created? Well, hold on. Let's take it one step at a time. What created the universe? What created it?
God.
God created the universe.
Well, that's,
now, this... Yeah. What's that?
No, what I was going to say is that's going back to our